It's Friday. It's Friday again already. This week went so fast. Welcome. Come on into the Nutmeg Tavern. We are missing our barkeep today. But I'm your host, John Townsend. And we're going to have some fun today. We've had a busy week. Before I get started on that, Aaron's on the console. He's making sure he's keeping those computers in line.
I'm waiting on the talent, on the star talent.
Hey, I'm always late. I am always late. I was like, I got 20 minutes. I run downstairs. 21 minutes later, I look up the clock.
You know what's really funny? That actually answers a question that we have. But I'll ask it later.
It's not them, it's me. Kyle.
I was ready.
Kyle is in the question seat.
Right.
He's on the chat. He's responding. He's looking for great questions.
Lots of great questions.
And let me tell you, this week, earlier, Ryan and I went scouting for a location for a big shoot that we have got coming up next week. That's going to be incredible. It's going to be a big... it only takes a couple of days to do it, but we got lots of people involved, so let's just hope it stops raining. How about that? I don't know about you, but here it's been raining and raining and raining. Today, finally, we've got this beautiful, beautiful blue sky out. Finally.
That's going to rain tomorrow.
Finally. Everyone's out trying to mow their lawn quick before the next giant rainstorm hits. Anyway, we need it to stop raining, so there you go.
It's gonna. I know it is.
Yeah, just yesterday we did a little bit of pickup footage on Monday's video.
We actually did some pickup footage today too.
Was it today?
Yeah, we did it like an hour ago.
Oh gosh, it's been that kind of week, guys. It's been that kind of week. Had a great conversation yesterday with Eric Faustine about some possible future content, which should be really interesting if we can do it. Paul McKenzie, if you're listening, there might be something in there for you, but I don't know. It's so good, scary that it might not end up on YouTube. It's anyway, we'll see how that works. Some great content though. Normally Ryan's back here and he would have me a drink today, but he is on the road doing his music thing. So if you see Ryan in your hometown and you want to go and hear him play music, do you know where he's at, Aaron? He was in Chicago, wasn't he?
Something about Nashville, but I could be wrong. I'd have to check his Instagram.
There you go. So Ryan's on the road. We had to fix his van right before he left. But we're always doing fun stuff here. How about let's do a couple quick questions and jump right into it.
Alrighty. How many people would they have crammed into a busy tavern at a time?
Oh, it's going to be busy in a tavern. But they're not giant places, most of them. I mean, they are fairly big locations for that sort of time period, but I'm sure we would consider them fairly small venues. But I can imagine a dozen or 20 people crowding into a room easy.
What are the chances a new laundress could have caused a major chemical reaction without meaning to?
I doubt that's going to happen. Most laundresses are familiar with the items that they're using, and I don't think there's any great intense chemical reactions they're going to get that they don't know about already. So I don't think it's going to be too scary. Not like they're going to have bleach and ammonia together or something strange like that. You don't want that to happen.
Was Switchel ever made with fresh ginger back in the day, or was fresh ginger just not available and powder was always used? It seems powder would not incorporate well into a drink.
True. So fresh ginger is harder to come by because it's an imported thing, and in the time period they probably weren't growing it fresh, but I'm not so sure that I haven't seen references to fresh ginger root. That's a really, really good question. I'm going to have to do some digging on that one. Yeah, good question.
Let me get a couple donations. These
Yeah.
came in before.
Go ahead.
They're really nice donations, so I'd like to read them. Julie Stevens, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
I am finally catching a live stream on time.
Hey, welcome.
Are Carol and her husband planning on expanding on the Maggie story? I would love another DVD that tells us more.
Yeah.
And then we'll do this other one. David Donnelly, thank you.
Okay.
I saw a reference to a military unit wearing a coatee.
Coatee. Yeah.
Coatee, yeah. Mm-hmm. And not the standard regimental jacket. Could you explain what that was and where they were worn?
Okay.
The unit was in the South when it was referenced. Okay. So let's start with the Maggie thing. I'm sure they're in the chat
Sure.
right now. I think they already kind of have.
Are you guys in the chat? Yes, they're working. There you go. Hey, Carol. They are working on the next phase of the Maggie story and Maggie and Badger. So you've seen the original or the first part of the Maggie story, and the laundress is actually sort of part of that first part of her story. So Maggie, as in the indentured servant, would take in and do laundry. There is a second part where, and if you've seen the Halloween episode from a year and a half ago?
I think it was 2017.
Right, 2017 Halloween. You got to see some of the Resurrectionist if you dig in there. And there's probably a lot more. We should probably touch base with her and get more of that Resurrectionist story. Maybe this Halloween would be a good time to really dig in and get the whole story, right?
Oh, yeah.
Dig in.
Yeah, get it? I didn't. He came up with that one. I didn't get that one. Dig in and pull that story out of the ground. Anyway, and now they're working on the next phase, sort of the end phase of Maggie and Badger and their relationship, and this really kind of brings about the idea of what are the poor laws like in colonial America. So this story sort of digs into that and talks about what happens with people that are destitute, et cetera, in colonial America and early America. So really, really interesting story, and a really interesting way to bring forth all the different sorts of facts about that and still put them into a narrative, so it's easier for us to grasp what's going on with that, because it's like telling it through a person's life instead of just random facts thrown out. So it's a great way to understand and comprehend history.
Yeah, as far as DVDs go, they can come and chat and say otherwise, but they're probably not quite ready for those stories to be shot yet. And that might be something down the road. Because I think some of this is kind of new.
I think they're ready.
Oh, you think so?
No, I don't. Maybe.
They'll
the
have to let me
Resurrectionist maybe. But certainly this other part, they're still kind of collecting.
I would love to do, a sequel or whatever you want to call it. And then this was that...
The Coatee part?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm going to guess that the Coatee here is talking about short versions of the regimental coat. And so you see the regimental coats, and they're long and they're heavy, and they were made of fairly heavy wool. Not necessarily the most appropriate wear all over the colonies and at all times of the year. And different kinds of units might have a shortened version, especially if they were the sort of cavalry or other horse type units, so they would have shorter coats, and some other regiments did have sort of shorter versions of the coats that stop more at the waist level. That's what I think they're referring to in that particular one, and it makes complete sense if they're in the South, where you're in a much warmer climate, that you would need something that wasn't this heavy.
So let's do some more questions. We'll wait for some more donations coming to do those. I just want to get those two because they came in before we started. So if we got any more questions, let's do it.
Oh yeah. Is there a book about the history of the use of the tomato in America? When did it become mainstream?
There is a tomato book. It's in my it's in my library, and it's fairly recent. If you just dig, history of the tomato on Amazon or something, you'll come up with probably the tomato book. Somebody really went out and did some great research on that. And there's a lot of stories about tomatoes, and they go back and forth. And that's because there are lots of places in North America, lots of different cultural traditions. Some people are very accepting of those types of foods, and other people reject them. If there's a Spanish influence, French influence, or Italian influence, you're much more likely to be accepting of the tomatoes, and English not so much. So there's a lot of kind of controversy, or really what's happening is there's just different people with different ideas. There's at least one 18th century cookbook, the Pickney Horry book, which is a manuscript cookbook. That's the I think it's South Carolina or Virginia. And she references tomatoes in the middle of the 18th century as a foodstuff. So obviously there's a bunch of different ideas about tomatoes happening in North America in that whole 1750 through 1850 time period, in that slow adoption of tomatoes as real food versus that's poison.
Was there an orphanage that would teach life skills to people, or would they just have to fend for themselves?
Yeah, there were some sorts of institutions like that in Great Britain and in North America, where they expected it was sort of a trade school kind of thing happening to a small extent. They certainly were raising up those kids, and would say, well, they need to have something to start them out in life. It might not be the right thing. It might not be a very profitable occupation, but they thought, yes, these people need to be ready to go into the workforce to be able to support themselves. So there was generally thought about that. It wasn't just a holding cell for people until they came of age, and then they, booted them out. There was schooling happening.
Are there any records of so unseasonable weather that crops just couldn't grow in the period?
Yeah, certainly. Is it 1812 or 1816? One of those years, there's a little ice age, and the crops fail. The vast majority of crops fail in North America in that time period. There were all those sorts of things going on. Peter Kalm, in his book in 1749 or so, he actually goes back through sort of newspapers, and he jots down things in his book about different weather events and bad weather that would cause that sort of thing. So there was interest in the time period about that, and of course, those kinds of things happen. And about that same time period is when the New Madrid Fault earthquake happened right here in the Midwest, and one of their rivers were running backwards for half a week or something. So there were a lot of strange sort of weather and other factors happening right there in the early 19th century.
I have a question about daily life at the Townsend store. This is the question I was talking about earlier.
Look out.
Who is the first to arrive generally? Is John the early bird?
Sometimes. Lately, not this. I mean, this month I've been trying to work less, but it hasn't worked out so far. So you never know who's going to be in first. I mean, Lauren, who lives in the building, she's usually not the first one here. I don't know who's the first one here. Seamstresses, when they come in on that day, they're usually in early, and it's all over the place.
Dan.
Yeah.
Dan,
I was going to say
sometimes.
Dan.
Yeah.
Probably.
Dan. I've never been here before, Dan.
All right. Does John or any of the staff dress in period clothing at the shop regularly?
Like never.
Only when we have to. And so a lot of times I'll be wandering around dressed, but that's because I have to shoot a video or,
But you got
pictures.
back from shooting a video and it's like, why change?
Right. I don't even need to change, or I'm going to be doing something later on, so I might as well start dressed out. Normally, if it's going to be somebody, it'll be me.
What is or what was a tossing pan?
I think that's just a typical frying pan, and they did talk about even William Ellis in 1750. He talks about flipping pancakes in the pan. So yeah.
Were dinner knives sharpened in the 18th century? I bought a fork and knife set, and the blade is large and long, and only the last maybe third feels sharpened.
Well, they're going to be sharp enough to cut your meat. So yes, but you want to make sure that, if you look at those big, do I have one? Sometimes I do. There's a horn spoon. No, I don't have a knife. The back side of the knife is definitely smooth enough and very, very dull so that you can eat off the back of the knife, and that's what that is for. And that's why it's got a nice large tip to it, so that you can get food to stay on the top of the knife blade, not a pointed tip knife. So they should be sharp enough to.
I remember watching an episode of Turn and saw I think he was trying to portray a commander or something like that, and he was using one of our forks, but he was eating off of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got that wrong.
Took you right out of the show.
Sure will.
Boy, ruined everything. Forget the whole.
Ruined everything.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I've stabbed myself on accident trying to pack those things.
Those forks are really
they're
sharp.
deadly. So
I'm gonna get these other donations right now. And thanks everyone for donating. Who's donated so far? Goofus Maximus. Aside from the birth of the United States, what were some of those critical historical events that occurred in the 18th century? And then Brent 4, thank you. Love your content. What reenactments and events would you suggest for a fellow Hoosier? Mrs. Sinowa for sure is one.
Yeah.
Let's start with the first one. Critical historical events. Are we talking like in the colonies or like worldwide?
There's more happening in the 18th century than we're led to believe in high school history books. The Revolutionary War stands out giant, but there are certainly really important things happening afterwards with the Whiskey Rebellion and the Indian Wars that are happening. So like Wayne, General Wayne is right here in the area that we're at right now in 1794 or something like that. And there's certainly a bunch of upheaval there with that. There's the French and Indian War, which is critical to understanding what's happening for the Revolutionary War, and you really need to understand that. And then there are these sort of hidden wars that are happening earlier on. And even those are sort of nebulous in my mind. I was like, okay, now which one was that? Queen Anne's War or William's War? Anyway, so there's a bunch more to learn there and understand how that affects what's going on in North America. Even the idea of the South Sea bubble in Great Britain and what effect that actually has in North America. Boy, I feel pretty stupid sometimes when I think about all those things that are occurring and say, now how does this really affect us, and what's is that actually a driver for certain things and we don't recognize it? There's a lot to learn.
The Gurkhas conquered Nepal in 1768. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Me neither, but I do know. The Boston Massacre?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
right. Those 1774 driving the certainly it's sort of part of the Revolutionary War in a way.
There you go. Yeah, there's a lot. And then the other one was reenactments and events that you can recommend.
Yeah. Here in Indiana, the two biggies in the fall are Feast of the Hunter's Moon, and which is in West Lafayette, and the event that's in Mississinewa, the Mississinewa 1812. It's usually the 2 weekends later. There's more that is happening around the state, but I don't go to any of those, at least lately, so I'm not up on some of those other events, and I'm trying to think of. None of them are popping into my head.
Those two are the two big ones.
Yeah.
The Feast of Mississinewa. Those are like the, I guess you could say, premier events.
Definitely.
Yeah. And let's see. I'll do a couple more just because we're doing them right now.
Certainly.
This is from Chad. How have Native Americans influenced our cooking? And then, Eliza Marie, there we go, I got it. Thank you for all you do to promote living history. Thank you, everyone. So let's do the Native American influence.
Well, Native American influence is very, very important for especially the food stuff. So all these Europeans come to North America, and the indigenous foods that are available are completely different. And without understanding, number one, that they are food and they're, very, very edible, the Europeans wouldn't survive. So things obviously like maize, we call it corn here, but corn is really not a very good term for it. So in the time period, they would call it Indian corn, but maize is probably the best term for it. So everyone understands what we're talking about. Potatoes, of course, maybe not necessarily with Native Americans, but beans and pumpkins. Those are some of those sort of major food staples that the Native Americans are using, and they're getting introduced into these other diets of the Europeans that are coming over here. So the methods of cooking them, understanding how to cook them, cook them in a way that's actually edible and gets you the right kind of nutrients out of them. There's a lot of that knowledge is really coming over from the Native Americans. There's undoubtedly a certain quantity of rejection of those things because they're from the Native Americans in that time period, but not as much as you might think. It's kind of interesting to grasp the difference, the diversity of the thoughts of the different Europeans as they interact with the Native Americans. Some of them are rejecting of that whole, it's like, well, they're savages or whatever, and then other ones are very interested and studying them and really want to interact with them. It really was an interesting clash of cultures. It wasn't a monolithic idea that everyone thought this way about them or not. And that's really one of those things we got to dig into and understand the amount of different ideas there were about the Native Americans and how we should interact with them. So really interesting thought, and that really interplays with food a lot.
So what are some, I'm trying to think about this, what are some of the recipes we've done that you would say are the most heavily influenced by Native American cooking?
We did a couple of succotash. There was like a fall one and a summertime succotash.
The Three Sisters.
Right.
Succotash?
That's right. That's the beans and the pumpkin and and corn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
We also would you consider the remember when we did it was popcorn, but there were other parched.
Right, parched corn, popcorn. Yeah. That's very, very important and influential. Obviously, pemmican and that whole series was, very highly influential about Native American and how they were producing and making that stored food stuff. And the episodes I was talking about with Eric Vostine, There's a couple of really, really interesting food episodes we could do with that. So yeah, there's more sort of in the future, in that hazy future.
Yeah, we've done a few, and we'd love to do more. I guess
and spruce beer even, right?
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. So there's some stuff on the channel right now. Yeah, let's go back to questions. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to do, like Patreon or.
Well, yeah. While we're there, let's talk about Patreon. And whoa, it's been a incredible week for Patreon. Everyone, thank you so much for that. Here are the new names. It's going to be a while. Dan Yoder, Craig Mills, Jonathan Parsons, Holly Lind, Robert B., Adam Wagner, Arthur Souza, Victoria Sweeney, Rachel, Tom Parker, Apollo Bryan, Krister Venz, Chris Lester, JR, Jude Infantini. All those people are brand new Patreon supporters. We are over something like 510 Patreon supporters. Amazing. And that really makes it so that we can do things that I wouldn't think possible. So this trip that we've got coming up next weekend, next week, we can do that because of people who support us on Patreon. So super thank you to all you guys, all the new people and all the people that have been continuing to sort of support us in the past. If you're not familiar, Patreon is a way that people can support us with a small amount of money each and every month, and it's just sort of automatically does this small amount. So it's just a great and easy way to help support us. So super thank you to all you folks out there.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. This question asks, how did the American pie plate come about, and how is it different than what is known as pie in Great Britain?
That's a interesting question, and I'm not going to fake an answer for that. I'll have to do some digging on that idea. So there are certainly a lot of pies, especially early on. They made them in what they might call sometimes coffins in the time period. And we did a pie that was like that, where we made a special hard crust. And you make the whole sort of vessel container out of pie crust that gets very hard, and you can cook inside of that. And then you would sort of cut it open and serve out of it. And it was more of a baking vessel. So today we think of pie crusts and we want to eat them. This pie crust, not so much. But we do have the pies that do have very edible crust. But I'm not sure about the pie plate design and where that comes and goes. So I'll have to check that out.
What did people in the 18th century use to light candles and oil lanterns before matches were introduced? Did they always have to keep a fire going and use a stick or something?
Yeah, pretty much. They would generally have some fire going someplace. Maybe not in the hot summer, but somebody's cooking, right? Someplace. So it's likely that there's a fire going on somewhere locally, and you would light your oil lamp or your candle with a match stick, right? So it might not have a chemical head to it, but it's just a splint or a small stick that you would use to transfer fire from one place to another. Or you would use a paper spill, which is a piece of paper that's sort of curled up into a tube like a straw, and you would use that to go and light one thing to another.
I've been wondering about all the smoke from cooking and everything else. Do you think pollution in that era compares to today?
I have no idea how it would compare, but it was certainly, cities and towns, they could be very smoky places. And if you've ever been to a period event with lots of people cooking, and smoke is everywhere, and it's, billowing around, and but there's a lot fewer people at least in North America. And so even if it was smoky, it's in a fairly small area. But when I think on that deeper, imagine one of the big exports that's happening from North America in the 18th century, in the 19th century, is potash, and that's from burning down our forests. And so you can imagine people were to clear land, you were burning a lot. So there was a lot of that going on in the 18th century, but I don't see very many people complaining about it.
It's got to be a difference between wood smoke and, you know,
yes,
the
industrial
petroleum smoke and all that
yeah,
stuff.
Certainly. It's probably worse for you.
Right, yeah. When did they start using ice houses in America, and how far south did they go?
I don't know how far south they went.
Man, we're stumping John today.
Yeah, you guys are pulling out the really good questions today, and even time period wise, I'll bet you it's mostly a sort of a mid to late 18th century thing. As you know, we get a little bit more civilized. I don't even know if we're still civilized, but more civilized in the later part of the 18th century. But I don't have the sort of timeline of, okay, here's the earliest ice house piece. I know George Washington had an ice house, or something like the ice house that they had at Locust Grove, but we would need to sort of do a study on ice houses in different places and see exactly where they go. But that's a really good question. I love that one.
My question is, what are your thoughts, John,
Whoa.
on the movie The Patriot? It is personally my favorite movie. Thoughts?
It's been a long time since I've seen The Patriot, and like all movies, they're telling a story, and history doesn't always give us the kind of story we want to tell in a movie, because movies, if you've studied movies, they're really all the same. Don't tell anybody, but they're pretty much all the same. They hit. It's like, okay, at minute 12, this is going to happen. And, then this is going to happen. And things go good, and then things go bad. And then, there's this final battle, and then it's done. Well, history is not like that. And so that doesn't mean the movies are bad or they do a bad job of telling us history. It just means that we have to understand that they are what they are. And of course, they, like in The Patriot, they're kind of smearing together a couple of characters at once and changing history a little bit. That's okay. It gives us ideas, and it's entertaining and gives us a taste of history. So, but The Patriot itself, I have to rewatch it to tell you what I thought about it, because I haven't seen it for so long that.
Yeah, and there are things, when you're trying to recreate history in a movie that, like, in movie form, it's just not going to work.
Right, they don't work.
Yeah, it's just not exciting or whatever. So yeah,
even though it might be the most important part of the
Yeah.
story, and it's like, oh, we can't really tell that part.
Yeah, I mean, even adding music to something
Oh.
mundane, it's like, well, I bet you at the
Totally
time they weren't
changes it.
thinking about
Yeah.
what music was going to be played in the future. They were just, signing important documents and
Yeah.
stuff. I'm going to do a couple more donations because we're getting quite a few.
Yeah, if only history sort of, had its own, soundtrack to it, right? Our daily lives have this little soundtrack of important things happening, different music's playing.
You could make my drive to work exciting if you wanted to with the right music.
That's right.
Well, I don't know if any music would make my drive.
Hey.
That's a pretty boring drive.
Okay, where are we at? Mr. Clark, thank you. Recently found your channel and subscribed right away. Absolutely love the content. 2 thumbs up. Thank you for the sub and the donation. Keltoid5, thank you. Gonna try another recipe outside this weekend. Is Instagram still a thing? Ooh.
Is Instagram still a thing?
Well, the company still is a thing. I think he means the Instagram contest.
Oh.
We do need to address that.
Yeah. We don't?
Well,
We do?
let's do some more donations.
Okay.
Max are
He's
cool.
trying to bury it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just pile them on. More donations, please. So I can Max are cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
John and team, thanks so much for the laundry videos you did. Very helpful for understanding a slice of daily life.
Yes.
Love slice of common life videos. Yeah, I thought those turned out really well. Keltoid 5 again, thank you. Forgot my question. Did they still have traveling printing presses back then?
Traveling printing presses. Man, you guys are just going crazy.
Well, I was
with these
thinking we've got to be
excellent
over
questions.
100 episodes in. After a while, you start getting to the really tough questions.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
Wow.
Orion Von YX. Thank you. The leading officer of the night raid. What inspired you to put this channel together? Reverend James, thank you. And then Wingy, thank you. Keep up the great content. Thanks, Townsend's team. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the support. Let's start with, do we want to talk the Instagram contest? I mean, we still do it.
Here we
so
go.
Busy.
Well, it is busy, and this is your chance to get in there in the chat and sort of, your thumbs up or thumbs down on what you think about the Instagram contest. We haven't done it in a couple weeks, and Ryan's sort of on the fence about it. I think it's fun, it's interesting, and we just have to see what you guys think about it.
Yeah. Okay, then the next one was traveling printed presses.
I'm unfamiliar with exactly how the traveling printing press thing would work, and I'm not sure that that's happening in the 18th century. All the sort of references that pop into my head or thoughts about printing are pretty established sort of setup shops. So I'm not sure what the traveling printing press thing is going on there. So I'd have to find some printery kind of person with more expertise than me.
The other one was, what inspired you to put this channel together?
Yeah, well, I was just talking to someone recently about the idea, where the channel came from, and I was playing around with doing video work for the business in the early 90s. We did a little bit of instructional video that came out on VHS. Yes, I know, it's hard to believe. VHS, and even at that time, I was thinking about how, that was sort of very, very early internet days, 95, 96, how it would be very interesting that video on the internet would be a great way to reach out to people with historical things. And I even remember sitting in my office talking to JH about the idea that, what we really need is a site. Different historic groups really need to engage with creating video content and putting it out on the internet. And boy, wouldn't it be neat if there was a site that we could, make all that happen. Well, I didn't do that, obviously. Dummy me. But somebody else did. And so in 2008, we started putting content on YouTube because we had a lot of people asking us questions about products and, how does this particular thing work? And it's hard to describe on the telephone. It's impossible sometimes to describe it on the telephone. And just a 30-second video would tell people how that thing worked. And so we quickly went from that to, let's do funny videos, let's do a movie, let's do cooking videos. Well, thankfully we landed on cooking videos after failing over and over and over again.
Yeah, but I don't think we were alone in that. I don't think YouTube knew what it was at the time. I think everybody was
I don't know. The YouTube still knows what it is.
That's true too. But everybody was kind of running around in the dark, and
yeah,
it was a crazy time. And I think that's it for now. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Great questions.
Yeah, for real.
This question says, do you like the same 18th century life in other countries as well, like in England, Germany, France, Greece, or Ireland?
I'm intensely interested in the similarities and differences of the 18th century life in different places, and even wider and more diverse than that. You even see plates of what Chinese life was like in the 18th century, or different places. So yes, specifically Germany, Northern Europe, you see some great Swedish art from the 18th century. And that's always great to look at. It's like, okay, how is this different? How is this the same? It looks very, very similar, except for some different, clothing items. There's some Russian art from the 18th century that's interesting to study and understand. The Spanish art is very, very interesting from that time period. So yeah, I'm highly interested in all those other cultures and how different and how similar it is.
How did the military choose the horses that they used? Luck of the draw.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
I'll say this about that previous question. I feel like we're dipping our toe into like other
Cultures?
Not culture. Yeah, cultures. Yeah, over the last year or two, and I'm excited to see where it goes because it's so
right
the entire world.
And we had these little pockets of that happening in North America. So little Peter Kalm comes over and he's Finnish, Swedish, I don't know whatever, and there are he's interacting with those folks here that have a little colony in the New York area. So there are these little interesting pockets of cultures that are going on in North America in the 18th century.
All right. This one starts off with Mr. Townsend.
Yes.
I don't know if he's talking to you or talking to your dad. Have you ever considered carrying supplies for a flintlock, patches, flints, powder horns, or one's possibles bag?
Well, we do have some of those things.
We have powder horns?
Yeah, we have powder horns. We have bags. We do have things like flint wallets. But the consumables, patches, the musket balls, those sorts of things we don't necessarily carry, or flints for that matter. It's kind of a specialty item. Many, many years ago, we carried a bit more of that sort of thing, but it's just not since the majority, a lot of our customers are doing 18th century, but they're just doing civilian and they don't necessarily need gun supplies. So it's just a very small segment of the market that we sell to.
How were beds and mattresses made in the 18th century in North America?
They used ticking, so tightly woven fabrics. And we even see that ticking that we have today that's blue striped and usually a twill fabric, so it's very, very tight, almost exactly the same kind of fabric they used in the 18th century. And they would stuff those mattresses with things like straw or with feathers or with if you're in different locations, they would use the thing that's most appropriate. So you might use raw cotton or something strange like that in your mattress. And they had these weird kind of bolsters and pillows that we might not recognize too much for their beds and mattresses. Definitely a good bit different than what we're used to with these sort of industrial mattresses that are all exactly square and support you perfectly. It wasn't anything like that in the 18th century, and I'm sure there were a lot of back pain from this bed not working right, but they were used to it. They don't know anything different, so they didn't complain about it usually.
I want to get a few more donations. A lot of donations. Thank you.
Yeah.
From Dean, thank you. Nancy Gross, thank you. Nice donation from Nutmeg for Life. Thank you.
Yay.
Could you do a video on Creole cuisine of the 18th century?
Wow.
And then Mike Crook. My no-knead French bread is rising at home.
Yes.
Thanks for the recipes. Looking forward to receiving a brown tricorn hat from you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Right on. That's awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
So, Creole cuisine.
Right. So my question about Creole cuisine would be what specifically they're thinking of there, because that term is actually can be a pretty wide term, meaning several different things. So
this is Louisiana.
yeah,
right?
Louisiana.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So that's a French colony in the 18th century, and what is that cuisine like compared to what's going on in France, and what were the adaptations, and even the connection to how is that similar and different than what's, let me think about it, mirror image, happening in Canada in that time period where the French are up there in Canada, and what are the similarities? Boy, that'd be a great topic. And
I think it'd be great. I'm looking at some of the recipes and I'm like, we need to try some of these. I don't know if they're period correct, but
yeah, right.
But yeah. That is all I got for now. Thanks everyone. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. I got one more question here, and then we can jump into the lightning round.
Oh yeah.
All right. This one asks, are the period products you sell made in-house or nearby, or are they outsourced?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes. The catalog is full of products, and some of them are made here in the buildings. A lot of clothing items are made here, and if you could hear it, there's a little tap, tap, tap sound. That's Josh down in the workshop making items as we speak. So some things are made right here on the premises. Some things are made by local craftsmen, so people that live within 10 or 15 miles from here. And they make products for them and make products for us and bring them in. Some seamstresses actually make clothing items and bring them in. Some seamstresses even mail them in because they live too far away. We work with craftspeople all around the United States. We work with big companies that make some items for us. And then there are some few items that we get from overseas because nobody in the United States makes anything like that. So it's everything. Hats. Yeah.
I make pipes.
Right. Even Kyle makes some of those things sort of on his own time. So it's everything. We fill in the blank every way possible.
Let me do one more donation before we do lightning round, and this will probably be the last donation, but you never know. And I'm going to butcher the name. Ulf Hulen.
Okay.
Thank you. He says, from cloud security training to the tavern. And actually, I was saying that I like
cloud security.
Yeah, that's where the money's going to be at. There. I like the idea of the tavern being a way to kind of like relax, like get the if you have the weekend off, like starting your weekend.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
I think it's got a cool feel. So, yeah, thanks for the comment.
Thanks for coming to the tavern.
Yeah, thanks for swinging by. All right, let's do this.
Lightning round, here we go.
Yeah.
Could you do a video on how to build your home set that you use to cook in?
I might, but
Next.
yeah.
Who's your favorite unsung hero from the 18th century?
Ooh. Unsung
or
hero.
American history in general, I guess is what it says.
I think there's a lot of hidden guys. Who was that doctor? He gets killed at Bunker Hill, and he was going to be super famous, and can't remember his name.
Any plans for more videos on getting into historical reenacting?
We could if people need that. That might be an interesting one. We can come back and touch back.
When did peanuts first arrive in the United States?
Oh, I have no idea. That's peanuts, man. Gotta write that one down.
All right.
Would you consider doing a special on pipes and tobacco?
We've done some stuff on tobacco. Pipes would be we could do a pipe episode.
Well,
pipes.
We've done a few. I still don't feel like we've quite done like the seminal tobacco.
Scratched.
Yeah.
Now the one at Mount Vernon was great. That guy was
Right.
awesome.
Right.
But as far as like B-roll and like the making of it and stuff,
Yeah.
I still think there's stuff.
There's
there.
more there.
Yeah. Dr. Joseph Warren. Is that
Yeah.
Parson John and Maggie coming in.
There you go.
Clutch.
Yes.
How did they soften coarse cornmeal?
How did they soften coarse cornmeal? Many times they would boil the cornmeal, or pour boiling water onto it to soften it up when they were going to cook it into something like cornbread. That we just make it up, but they had some other ways to.
Next, yep.
There you go. Okay. Do you sell your homemade beer online?
Oh no, I wouldn't want to kill anybody.
Ooh.
And last one, Aaron's gonna love it. Will you guys ever upload Crimson Bond on YouTube?
No. I think it's there somewhere.
Epitome of fast answer questions.
Occasionally someone will like comment. I think there's like weird links that don't do it. Just don't do it.
You never know.
Pirated versions. I don't know what it is.
At this point, I feel the only way people should be allowed to see it is if they buy a copy.
And there are only a few, and you can't. No, I'm not.
I want it to be a legend someday in 10 years.
I'm going to have to edit this part out of the live stream. You guys know that.
Why? Why is that?
Hey, it's part of the history, man.
It's history. It's just, that's history, right?
History right there.
Thank you, guys.
One more. Let's do one
more.
more.
No, we got another one.
One more.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you to Steph Snow. Thank you. There is a book, MME Beige Old Creole Cookery. She owned a tavern, and it's the recipes of her famous food served. It also shows times. You could take horse-drawn wagons to major cities. It is an amazing resource, and I suggest seeking it out. Thank you for that.
I'll look that up. Thank you so much.
All right.
It's been a wonderful Friday. I can't tell you how energized I get. I mean, really, this is supposed to be relaxing, right? Well, everybody comes into the Nutmeg Tavern, they relax. I go home, I'm like on, it's like, way too much caffeine or something, right? I'm always excited after the Nutmeg Tavern because, I get all these ideas and the interaction. Thank you guys so much for coming into the Nutmeg Tavern today and asking the great questions and being so wonderful and kind, helping us out with what we do here. We are getting close. We're almost to 900,000 subscribers. I was going to try to get a screen cap when it was 888.888, but I didn't. I think we were shooting a piece of video, so I didn't do it. We'll have to, Ivy said, well, Dad, you'll just have to wait till it's 999-999.
We'll probably go live when it gets there.
Yeah, wouldn't that be neat? So,
we'll probably do that.
You guys are part of whatever happens here on, the Nutmeg Tavern. I was having an interview with somebody, and they were asking about the channel, and really, it's because of viewers like you that the channel is what it is. Because I wouldn't have made it like this if it was all up to me. I would have had known what I was supposed to do. It's because of you. Thank you for all your great sharing our videos, subscribing to the channel, and donating to us, or whatever you do. Thank you so much for all you do, and thanks for watching.